You know things are bad when your state ranks dead last in something, but it's especially troubling when it has potentially life or death consequences. We're talking about mental health. Florida devotes the least amount of dollars to funding mental health services, and it's putting vulnerable kids in a bad state of mind.
I was really depressed and I had no one around me. And then I was doing really toxic stuff. I was sticking out, I would smoke marijuana, I would go out drink. I really didn't love myself. I really I want to end my life.
The conversation continues right here as we take our Mending Minds series from page to studio.
And it's leading to many of the problematic, really epidemics that we're seeing in our society with, child suicide being the second leading cause of death in our country.
And supporting their children in good times and bad. The role of mother gets well-deserved recognition today. For Mother's Day, a feature on a seminal family bonded by love and tradition. We'll have those stories along with the latest in our Positively Healthy Medical series. I'm Amy Osher, and this is Behind the Headlines. I'm Amy Osher. Thanks for joining us. Resources are few and far between for kids who struggle with mental health issues. It's a combination of factors: too few treatment centers that can accommodate too few patients and too few psychiatrists to serve them. Stakeholders believe we're at a crisis point with a growing number of kids living on the edge.
I might end up overdosing myself and be dead. I was really depressed and I had no one around me. And then I was doing really toxic stuff. I was sticking out, I would smoke marijuana, I would go out drink. I really didn't love myself. I want to end my life.
Caleb's always going to have mental health issues. He's always going to have autism. It's not going away.
I struggled with mental illness for the past few years, and the only reason I was sort of able to get the help I needed is because I'm middle class. I have the resources.
When they took him in to be Baker acted, they used the court system to push through to let David Lawrence Center say, hey, this is what needs to happen.
They want to make sure they're not going to commit suicide. They want to make sure that they're not going to hurt themselves.
You told me I should not be crying. You say it's not good for you. You can get more sick this way.
There was nobody qualified to be able to take Caleb on. I think that's the biggest thing. We can treat these kids. They do have other issues, not just they're in autism, we have to put them in this box, and we are only going to take care of the kids that have a disability for bipolar disorder or depression or what have you.
And so I was able to get counseling, I was able to get medication, and therefore I was able to begin getting better.
I needed more. I needed a counselor to tell me how to deal with problems you can't deal with because you can't always escape from them.
We've assembled a great group in the studio to help us debrief this subject. Frank Luck and Janine Zeitlin with the News Press and Scott Burgess from David Lawrence Center. I'm going to debrief some of these facts that I gathered first. Florida spends $36 per person on mental health, and that is second only to Puerto Rico. But last in terms of states, you did a lot of the drilling down on the numbers, Frank. What surprised you most?
I guess what's surprising is that this is a number that people have been talking about for a long time and nothing has really changed over the years. So yeah, Florida's been pretty much near the bottom for as long as anyone that I've talked to remembers.
And it's worth noting though, the need has gone up. It shows that it's far outpacing the growth in the area, the number of Baker Act assessments.
Yeah, I mean, this is happening while we're seeing demand for mental health services grow exponentially. Baker Acts are way up. Demand for outpatient services are way up, everyone's telling us. So this is a kind of a growing problem that's dealing with a very kind of limited set of funds right now.
And a very vulnerable population. Janine, that's kind of where you come in. You said that you did a lot of the interacting with the families, and you really see this personal toll that it takes on individuals.
Yeah, it was really important to Frank and I that we included the voices of the families and the young people that have been impacted by this crisis. And yeah, it's really difficult for people when their child has a mental illness. It's difficult getting help. It's difficult figuring out the system, how to navigate the system, and get services through the system.
I was going to say, one of the key components, isn't it, is finding the available services. So you might know that your child has a problem or the child is speaking out or acting out, but they really sometimes isn't the solution to get them help?
There are solutions. It's just kind of figuring out where to find those solutions and what solutions your insurance covers. Medicaid does pretty well in covering services, but a lot of the private insurances are not yet up to parity when it comes to covering medical conditions.
And that's kind of where you come in as a service provider with David Lawrence. What are some of the issues that you face then in trying to deliver these services to people?
Yeah, I think what's been talked about, the resources make it very, very challenging when you're one of the most under-resourced, arguably maybe the most under-resourced service system. It's hard to have all the cadre of supports that you need to have for a community to meet all of the needs. So I would say the resourcing makes it tremendously challenging, and then the point being brought up about parity, insurance parity. We still have very different rules in our country associated with if you have a problem with your heart or another organ compared to the brain. And that has to absolutely change. It's actually been 10 years, a whole decade, that we've had these parity laws in place, and yet nobody's enforcing that in our country. So the insurance companies are able, literally, to get away with not providing the care that people really need. And we know that mental health is just as important, if not more important, than a lot of the health care that's being provided. It's part of global health and wellness. And while we continue to treat things differently, the mind versus the body, we're going to have subpar outcomes, and it's leading to many of the problematic, really epidemics that we're seeing in our society, with child suicide being the second leading cause of death in our country. If that's not enough for us to say we've got to resource this better from both the public standpoint and the private standpoint, I don't know what is.
Are you finding, though, that there's an increase in kids that need help because there's more awareness for that? Or do we see things in society that might be driving more kids to having some extra issues?
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. So, I mean, yeah, there's an increased awareness, certainly, but, some would also argue that, social media is a problem, especially with bullying. It just kind of amplifies that bullying. So is it because of more awareness or just a bigger problem? I don't know that anybody really knows the answer to that question.
I think there are a lot of theories, but it's difficult to say one thing is necessarily causing it. I can say that the young people that we've spoken to and the young people in my life too, they're a lot more comfortable with talking about their own mental illnesses. So I think that is something positive, because I think they're more willing to say, yeah, I need help.
And I noticed that one of the young ladies in your story was somebody who was really advocating on being able for kids to be able to empower themselves to get help, regardless of whether their parents gave cooperation, whether they had insurance. She was really an incredible young lady. What did she have to say?
Yeah, she was amazing. I mean, and I met her mother as well, and she was amazing too. And so it was interesting to me as a parent to see that she was not comfortable with speaking to her mother about needing help, that there's a level of shame that these young people feel in going to their parents, even when they have very loving parents. So I think it's great for teenagers to learn how to get help themselves, but they also need a way to pay for it. So she wanted to provide kind of a mechanism to have that counseling services covered.
And Scott, you kind of alluded to this as well, that there's maybe a disconnect between the way people treat issues that involve the brain or mental health as opposed to physical health in a traditional sense. Do you feel that there is a stigma still that holds people back from wanting to wholeheartedly fund and proactively treat?
Yeah, I absolutely think that we've made a lot of progress in the way of raising awareness and decreasing some of that stigma, but it still is probably the only healthcare condition that people whisper about, that they're not willing to sit around a coffee table and really talk about openly with their friends and with relatives. So we've got a long way to go still, and when you think about, there's a lot of still pejorative terms that are out there around, mental illness and crazy, and you can just go on and on. There's a litany of different terms. So just culturally, we have not gotten mental illness into the conversation in the same way as really any other healthcare condition. So we've got a long way to go, but I think we're making progress year after year. And the more that we talk about it in segments like this, and the more we put it in newspapers and get it out in social media, the more acceptance we're going to actually have across time, which is going to make a big difference, because one of the single biggest barriers to treatment as people have shame and they're not willing to go and get care because they think that within themselves it's a character flaw, and it's really not. It's actually a healthcare chemical flaw in many ways.
That is such a shame, and I know that part of the ability to treat is the resources you have and how many people you can treat. And I think you reported that some of the places are operating above capacity a good part of the year and maybe only can accommodate 40 children at a time and things like that. Is that unusual in other states? Do you find that as well?
I don't think that it's unusual for Florida, I think these facilities do the best they can, but occasionally they are overwhelmed, and that translates into occasionally a child maybe having to wait a couple of days in a hospital for a spot.
And you said that you're coming up with some solutions about how to maybe treat more children without actually having to worry about getting them inpatient.
We are, yeah. We built a partial hospitalization program for children, which is essentially a day hospital program. So kids are able to come. Many of them have very significant symptoms, but they're not an imminent danger to themselves or others. They've got which is the Baker Act language. That's very specific challenges that people are having and an acute need. If they're just a little bit below that, and we know that they're safe enough to be able to go home at night, and but they need a lot of support, they can come to this day program and they receive a lot of intensive support, a lot of the support that they would receive in a hospital setting, but doctor services, nursing services, individual counseling, family counseling, group counseling, and all of that support's wrapped around these individuals, and typically the length of stay is about 2 weeks, and by the time those 2 weeks are over, the child's doing so much better, their symptoms are much more under control, they've got more skills to be able to attend to their coping, and they're ready to kind of take the next step, which is to get back into school and all the other things that really give them the quality of life that everybody is looking for them.
And that's a great alternative to be able to treat more. And Janine, can you talk a little bit about the amount of support that's required for this? I know in speaking with parents, it really was such a team effort, and they were so grateful when they were able to get people working in connection with their child to come up with some good solutions to help them the way they needed.
Yeah, I think it depends on kind of how much help they need and whether, sometimes it can be, and Scott might be able to speak to this more, but sometimes it can be a relatively simple diagnosis where it's a mild anxiety, but then sometimes the symptoms aren't really clear what kind of issues the child has.
A case in point is Caleb. We saw his story about where he had bipolar and autism, and he had a few different things, and it was hard to really determine his course of action.
Yeah, we've heard from parents that often their child has been misdiagnosed and then put on medication for the misdiagnosis. So it's not necessarily the provider's fault, but it's often a trial and error process to really figure out what's happening. It can take years. So that's also, I think, part of the difficulty in serving these kids effectively.
It's got to be very frustrating for families as well as the child himself. What is it like? Because in some instances, it can be very life or death. We have children that might be threatening or attempting suicide. What is it like to be in these families' houses?
Well, I think with the main family that we featured in our first piece, they didn't really know anything about the mental health care system. So when they took their child to the ER to get immediate help, they thought there would be immediate help. And they were waiting for a psychiatrist to come, someone to come to help their child, and they didn't get that there. So they were really shocked to find out that that's not how our system works. And then their child was sent to a facility at Bradenton, about an hour away. And so that was also another kind of difficulty for them, because they live far away from Bradenton, so they could never get there to meet with a psychiatrist because of their work schedule. So there's all kinds of factors at play that really can make it difficult for families.
Sure. Now, maybe the elephant in the room is, why is it that Florida has a lot of money? There's a lot of wealth here in Southwest Florida and throughout Florida. There's all this money. Why isn't there money devoted to this?
That's a good question. I think it's a matter of priorities. Yeah, Florida is not an impoverished state, but as one of our sources put it, it acts like that when it comes to mental health. It's a matter of prioritizing mental health as a health issue that needs addressing. It goes back to the issue of, what do you think about when you think about mental health? You don't think about it the same way you think of having a heart attack. But if we had growing numbers of people having heart attacks in this community, I guarantee there'd be a lot more focus on the issue. So, I mean, I think a lot of it is just educating the public about this issue, changing perceptions of mental health, and just making it a priority, especially when it comes to kids, because, I mean, what's important about mental health in kids is the earlier you catch a problem, the better you're able to treat it. And so you want to intervene as soon as possible and as effectively as possible.
Still ahead, a time-honored tradition is helping weave a connection between mother and daughter. That story is later on Behind the Headlines.
My name is Steve Unser, and cabinetry is my specialty. I have been creating custom designed cabinetry for 20 years in Southwest Florida. And now I am celebrating the grand opening of our new Naples showroom. Steve Unser Cabinetry will help you design your kitchen, bath, or home office with stunning results, offering the best quality of cabinets with a wide variety of design options and pricing to fit any budget. If your kitchen isn't becoming to you, you should be coming to us. Now, 2 locations to serve you.
Hiring the right moving company is important. Best Moving and Storage is a family-owned and operated business serving Southwest Florida for over 22 years. From our free in-home estimate until the last piece of furniture is in your new place or stored in our climate-controlled warehouse, we treat you like family. Best Moving and Storage is fully licensed and insured, with all of our employees being certified drivers and packers. When it comes to protecting your treasured belongings, choose a company that's experienced and trustworthy. Call Best Moving and Storage today at 239-592-6565.
The area's only 30 minutes or less ER service pledge means you'll find less waiting for the care you need. And because we're full service hospitals, a lot more care if you need it. Less waiting, faster care. Only at Physicians Regional Healthcare System.
Is your auto insurance keeping pace with your life? Ask for a AAA Triple Check Insurance Review to see if your current policy is still a good fit. An agent will assess changes in your life, like new vehicles or drivers. Make sure you've got the right coverage and all the discounts you deserve. They'll also see how a AAA membership can round out your protection on the road. Plus, provide roadside assistance, discounts, free services, and vacation extras. Ask for your AAA Triple Check today.
Lots of people have trouble brewing inside of them and don't know it until it starts causing them pain. That's how it works with gallstones. Once symptoms arise, it's time to say goodbye to the gallbladder. Here's the latest in this week's Positively Healthy. The gallbladder goes largely unnoticed unless it misbehaves. That's the reality for millions of Americans each year who develop painful symptoms.
For most of the patients that I see, they've developed gallstones, and then over time these stones cause inflammation and irritation of the gallbladder, and so they begin to have right-sided pain and some maybe nausea and bloating after they eat.
Dr. Brian Smith is a board-certified general surgeon.
As it progresses, they may start to develop fevers and chills, and then usually that's when they come to the ER. Also, a lot of times in men, they'll start to have chest pain. And so they'll feel like they're having a heart attack.
The gallbladder is a small pouch-like organ that stores bile used to dissolve fats. Gallstones form when there's too much cholesterol. If they cause pain, the standard treatment is to remove the offending organ. Research confirms surgery is a final fix.
They've tried the lithotripsy to pulverize the stones, and it actually makes it worse. They've tried drugs to get them to dissolve, and it doesn't work. They've tried just taking out the stones, but you just get more stones, and then it's harder to get the gallbladder out. So at this point, yes, if you develop gallstones and they begin to cause problems, then we would generally recommend having the gallbladder removed.
What used to be a major open operation is frequently downsized in favor of less traumatic approaches. The large majority of gallbladder surgeries are done laparoscopically through a few small incisions, often hidden in or around the belly button.
Another option actually is to just do one incision, and so usually that's done robotically. We would use the Da Vinci robot for that, and you can have just one incision at the belly button and you can have it removed that way.
Limiting the cutting also cuts back on bleeding, scarring, and downtime. Most importantly, the body adapts quickly after saying goodbye to the gallbladder.
Most of them do really well. The big change they'll notice for the first few months is that some fatty or greasy foods will upset their stomach.
We'd be remiss if we didn't pause to acknowledge Mother's Day and the lengths moms go to support their kids. The Osceola name is well known in Collier County. Members of the local Seminole tribe, the family has deep ties in the community. But it's Tina Osceola and her daughter Dakota that Alexi Cardona focuses her Mother's Day story on. The pair share a deep bond, with mom Tina nurturing her daughter through her battle with substance abuse. It's an issue that runs through their family as well as the Seminole tribe in general. But Tina never gave up. In fact, she used a cultural tradition to help Dakota through her dark days, which also involved confronting depression. Today, the women share a passion for beading. The art of making Seminole jewelry is something Tina taught Dakota, and it's something she could rely on while she struggled to get clean. The devotion to their shared past and love for each other is something many families can relate to. Alexi's story is now on naplesnews.com. Here's a few more stories our reporters are covering on the beat.
Thanks, Amy. I'm Ashley Collins. I'm a features reporter here at the Naples Daily News. This past week, I got a chance to review the final play of the season for Gulf Shore Playhouse called Skylight. Skylight runs now until May 19th, so you still have a chance to purchase tickets. It's about a former CEO and a school teacher who had a love affair, and this is set 3 years later after that affair, and how their lives have changed since then. And basically, the audience leaves the play wondering why they were together in the first place, but then you realize why. So for more on this story and to purchase tickets, visit naplesnews.com.
I'm Tad Mast, reporter over here at Naples Daily News. Patrons of DeRomo's Gourmet Market and Restaurant can find some of their favorite items online at Amazon.com. The eatery has begun placing items like olive oil and vinegar online, so anyone heading back north during the summer will be able to enjoy some of their favorite items. Go to naplesnews.com for more.
Hi, my name is Brittany Carloni, and I'm a reporter with the Banner and the Naples Daily News. This week I wrote about an Estero area business called A Little Cookie Shop. Amanda Arrington operates the business from her home in Corkscrew Shores. She bakes unique and custom cookies for events like weddings, graduations, and birthdays. Read more about A Little Cookie Shop in this Saturday's edition of The Banner and online at naplesnews.com.
After the break, he did his mother proud. Matter of fact, this sports star has lots of fans here in his hometown. He makes a triumphant return. That's next.
Life here is amazing, and so is the joint care. At the Total Joint Center at Physicians Regional Healthcare System, we've changed the experience of joint replacement for good. With our comprehensive joint care program, most hip and knee replacement patients return home in just 2 days because we know you want to get on with your active life. Pain-free living starts at Physicians Regional Medical Center, Collier Boulevard, and Physicians Regional Medical Center, Pine Ridge.
Jean LeBouf has been an anonymous food critic in Lee County for nearly 40 years, and now JLB is expanding into Collier County.
Look for a new review every week. You'll never know where I'll turn up.
The area's only 30 minutes or less ER service pledge means you'll find less waiting for the care you need. And because we're full service hospitals, a lot more care if you need it. Less waiting, faster care. Only at Physicians Regional Healthcare System.
Now for a quick trip back in time, all the way back to last weekend. One of Southwest Florida's most famous sons, sports legend Deion Sanders, returned home ready to turn the corner on what has been a challenging relationship with his hometown. Whether you know him as Primetime or Neon Deion, Fort Myers' own Deion Sanders has always been an attention getter. A superstar in 2 major sports, he's both a Super Bowl winner and a World Series player, but he didn't always feel the love from his hometown, and it led to a rocky relationship, with Sanders sometimes lashing out about life in the fort. That's past history now. Sanders put to rest any bad feelings when he accepted a key to the city during a public speaking engagement. The pro ball player is doubling down now on how to best serve the community where he grew up. Following the public appearance, he hit the field to encourage the next crop of football players, many of who would love to follow in his footsteps. And finally, there's no better time to roll out those family photos featuring the moms we love. They're dominating social media feeds, and for good reason. We asked you to share some of your pics with us. Happy Mother's Day. That does it for us. Thank you for watching. You can always catch up on past editions by logging online to naplesnews.com and news-press.com. And if you'd like to support local journalism, we invite you to become a digital subscriber. Just log on to either website on the screen and start clicking. I'm Amy Osher. See you back here next week.